I never believed in demons until I met Thomas. We were locked up together. Same cell. He didn't scream, didn't sleep, just whispered to something in the dark. And then the lights went out. What I saw next still haunts me, and I'm scared it followed me home. If you're into real horror, messed up stories, and things that shouldn't exist, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. Because what you're about to hear, it's not just a story, it's a warning. They assigned me to cell 43. The door clanged shut behind me, with a finality that hit deeper than I expected. I'd never been to prison before, just a stupid mistake, a fight that went too far. I was scared, but I told myself to keep my head down, do my time, and get out. That was before I met him. His name was Thomas, or at least that's what the guards called him. He didn't introduce himself. When I first stepped in, he was sitting on the lower bunk, staring at the wall like he'd been waiting for something. Didn't even glance at me, just still, unmoving. I thought maybe he was asleep with his eyes open. I muttered a quick, awkward "hey" and got no response. Figured he was just some messed up lifer who didn't like small talk, but something about him put me on edge. Not in an aggressive way. He wasn't loud or twitchy like some of the other guys. He was just there, like a statue that breathed, always watching when you weren't looking. And when I finally caught his eyes, dark, sunken, bloodshot, they felt empty, like he'd seen something that broke him and never looked away since. At night, he didn't sleep. Ever. I mean that literally. I stayed up a few nights just to be sure. I'd hear him whispering when he thought I was out cold. Low, rhythmic sounds. Not English, not Spanish. Just wrong. Like the words didn't belong in a human mouth. I remember lying on the top bunk, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, listening to him mutter that strange language under his breath, over and over like a prayer to something ancient. The worst part? The whispers didn't stop when he did. Sometimes, I'd still hear them after he went quiet. Faint, like they were echoing off the walls. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination, or maybe someone in another cell, but deep down, I knew it was him, or something around him. Other inmates avoided him like he was infected. I'd see guys go out of their way to take the long route around our cell block. One even asked me, "How the hell are you sharing space with that freak?" When I asked what they meant, the guy just shook his head and walked off. Everyone had the same vibe, like they knew something I didn't, but refused to talk about it. Even the guards acted weird around Thomas. Most of them didn't say a word when doing rounds. Some would skip our cell entirely during checks. One time, a rookie asked Thomas a question, just a routine thing. But Thomas turned to look at him, and the kid went pale, like he'd seen a ghost. He didn't come back the next day. There was something about Thomas, something cold, heavy, like he wasn't alone inside that body. I didn't know what I was living next to, but every hour I spent in that cell, I could feel it. Whatever it was watching me too. It didn't take long before things started to feel off. And not just, "this place sucks," kind of off. I mean wrong. Like the air in the cell had a weight to it, heavy. Like breathing in smoke that wasn't there. Cold spots would just appear out of nowhere, like someone had left a freezer door open. I'd be lying on the bunk and suddenly feel a chill on my neck, like breath. But Thomas would be across the room, still as ever, not moving, not blinking. Then came the lights. They'd flicker sometimes. Yeah, old prison wiring, I get it. But they always flickered when Thomas was awake. And only in our cell. One night, the lights above our bunks started buzzing like crazy. They dimmed, sparked, and then pulsed in this slow, rhythmic way, almost like they were matching the pace of Thomas's breathing. I didn't even know what to do. I just laid there, frozen, pretending I didn't notice, pretending I wasn't scared. One time, I woke up in the middle of the night. Everything was silent, too silent. You ever wake up and immediately feel like something is wrong? Like your body already knows something before your brain catches up? I turned my head, and Thomas was standing in the corner of the cell, just facing the wall, arms down, like a damn sleepwalker. Except he wasn't asleep. His fingers were smeared with something dark. At first I thought it was ink, but the smell hit me before the fear did. It was blood. His own, I think. He'd been carving something into the wall with his fingernail. I sat up and asked him, "What the hell are you doing, man?" He didn't move, just whispered, "They're almost through." His voice wasn't loud, but it echoed, like the walls wanted to remember it. I didn't ask who they were. I didn't want to know. From that night on, I started hearing the whispers too, even when Thomas was asleep. And yes, he did sleep sometimes, but it wasn't normal. His body would twitch, like he was being pulled from the inside, and the noises he made, those weren't snores. They were like growls, like he was dreaming of something that had teeth. Other inmates started acting strange too. Guys who never even interacted with Thomas started having breakdowns. One guy, Mike, started clawing at his own arms in the yard, screaming that something was inside the walls. Another got transferred to solitary after attacking a guard, saying he saw it behind his eyes. No one was the same, and all the while, Thomas just watched, never smiled, never flinched, just sat there, like he was waiting for something, or someone. I started to wonder if I was losing it, if this place was just getting in my head. But deep down, I knew better. It wasn't just the prison. Something else was here, and it was getting closer. It was about 2 weeks in when Thomas finally spoke to me. It was the middle of the night. The air felt thick, too warm and too cold at the same time. I couldn't sleep again. I was lying on the top bunk, staring at the ceiling, trying not to focus on the soft whispering that always seemed to bleed in from nowhere. Then, out of the silence, Thomas said, "You ever wonder what's on the other side?" I didn't answer right away. I wasn't even sure he was talking to me. But then he turned his head, looked right at me through the darkness, and repeated, "I mean, the real other side." His voice was calm, almost gentle. That made it worse. It wasn't the voice of a madman. It was the voice of someone who knew something terrible and accepted it. I asked him what he meant, and for a few seconds, he just stared. Then, like he'd been waiting to say it for years, he started talking. "I wasn't always like this," he said. "I was a student. History. Theology. I liked digging into weird stuff. Ancient religions, lost languages, forbidden texts. Mostly out of curiosity. You know, the kind of stuff people laugh off as myths or conspiracy crap." He paused for a long moment, eyes distant. "Then I found something I shouldn't have. A book. Real old. No cover. Pages made of something that didn't feel like paper. It was written in this language I'd never seen before. Didn't even look human. But I could read it. Somehow, I could understand it." I didn't say a word. Just listened. His voice was so steady, it almost didn't feel like he was telling a story. It felt like he was remembering. "There was a ritual in there," he continued. "A calling. A way to open a door. Not a physical one. Not really. A gate. Between here and something else. Something older than time. I thought it was just symbolic. Some ancient metaphor for enlightenment, or some crap like that." He looked right at me. "It wasn't. He told me he went through with it. The ritual. in an abandoned church outside town, alone. Candles, symbols, blood. His own. He laughed a little, but there was no joy in it. The second I finished the last word, I felt it. Something looked back, not saw me, looked at me, like it had always been there, just waiting for me to knock. I asked him what came through. He didn't answer right away, just closed his eyes and whispered, "I don't know. Not fully, but it's here now. It followed me, or maybe it never left." He said the people who died afterward, they weren't killed by him. They were taken, torn apart from the inside. But the cops needed someone to blame, and he was the only one there. So they dragged him here, locked him away. But doors work both ways, he said. And I think it's almost time for it to come out again. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I've slept right since. After Thomas told me his story, something changed. Not just in him, in everything. The air in the prison got heavier, more electric, like the building itself knew something was coming, like it was bracing for impact. That night, I dreamed of fire, walls dripping with blood, screams echoing down endless hallways. And in the middle of it all stood a figure, tall, with twisted horns and hollow eyes. It didn't speak, it didn't move, it just stared straight into me, like it was already inside. I woke up gasping, soaked in sweat, the sheets wrapped around me like restraints. When I looked down at my arm, there was a mark. A burn, maybe. 3 jagged lines, almost like claws. Faded by morning, but still there if you looked close enough. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself it was just a bad dream. Stress, maybe. I mean, I was in prison, right? Stress made sense. But then more things started happening. A guard died. Just like that. Collapsed during a cell check. Heart attack, they said. But the rumors spread fast. Word was his eyes were gone. Not gouged out. Just missing. Like someone had scooped out his soul and left an empty shell. The next day, I found a symbol scratched into the concrete wall next to the toilet. Same one Thomas had drawn in his blood the night I caught him in the corner. I tried to scrub it off. It didn't fade. If anything, it got darker the more I touched it. People started losing their minds. One guy, across the block, started screaming about shadows crawling on the ceiling. Another refused to speak, just sat in the corner of his cell, chewing on his fingers until there was nothing but bloody bone left. Guards acted tough, but even they looked shaken. The night shifts got thinner. Fewer patrols. You could feel the fear settling in like fog. I asked Thomas if he knew what was happening. He just looked at me, eyes bloodshot and tired. "It's waking up," he said. "It feeds on attention, belief, fear. Every person who sees it, who dreams of it, makes it stronger." That's when I realized something that chilled me to the core. Thomas hadn't told me his story to confess. He'd told it to spread it. And by listening, I'd become part of it. A witness, a believer. There was a moment one evening when the entire block went silent. No talking, no footsteps, no clanging metal, just complete, unnatural silence. Every prisoner was in their cell, eyes wide, bodies tense. No one said anything, because we all heard it. A voice, low, guttural, impossible to place. It echoed through the vents and into our bones. Just a few words, not English, but somehow I understood. "We are here." That was the moment I knew. We weren't locked in with Thomas. We were all locked in with something else. And it was hungry. It started with the lights. Not the usual flicker. This was different. Every bulb in the block blew at the same time. One loud pop. Total darkness. Then came the alarm, shrill, broken, like it was screaming instead of warning. Doors clanged shut, metal groaned. Somewhere, someone started laughing or crying. I couldn't tell the difference. I called out for a guard. Nothing. Just silence, thick and unnatural, like the prison was holding its breath. And then I heard Thomas. He was chanting. Not loud, but steady. Same strange language he whispered at night, only now it had weight, power. It vibrated through the floor. I dropped to my knees, couldn't move, could barely breathe. Shadows started shifting. Not from the lights. There were no lights. These things moved on their own, crawling, slithering along the walls like they were alive. I saw one rise up, tall, wide, horns curling into the ceiling, and it turned its head toward me. I couldn't see a face, just eyes, burning red like coals buried in ash. And then it stepped forward. Thomas kept chanting. Louder now, the walls cracked, the floor pulsed. Prisoners screamed. Some vanished right in front of me. No sound, no warning, just gone. Like the shadows swallowed them whole. Something had come through. Something real. I wanted to run. I couldn't. I just knelt there, shaking, whispering prayers I hadn't said since I was a kid. It didn't matter. Hell had opened, and we were already inside it. I don't remember how long I was frozen there. Seconds, minutes, hours. Time didn't work right that night, but eventually the screaming stopped. The shadows stopped moving. And when I looked up, Thomas was gone. Not dead. Gone. His bunk was empty. The wall behind it burned black with that same twisted symbol. I was alone, but I could still feel him. Or maybe what had taken his place. The doors had opened, every single cell, wide open like the prison, just gave up. I stepped out, careful, expecting to see bodies, but there were none. Just silence, empty clothes, blood on the walls, but no people. I made my way through the corridors, alone. The lights flickered back on in some places, but they didn't help. If anything, the shadows were worse now in the light. Longer, reaching, like they were hunting for someone still breathing. When I finally reached the front gate, it was open. No guards, no backup. Just me and the cold night air. I ran, didn't look back. I don't even remember how far I got before I collapsed. A few days later, they found me on the side of a highway, babbling nonsense, covered in blood that wasn't mine. No one believed me. They said the prison burned down, electrical fire, no survivors. But that's not what happened. I saw what came through. Thomas wasn't crazy. He was the doorway. And now, I think it's still out there, waiting, watching, looking for someone else to listen. If you made it this far, ask yourself, was Thomas real? Or did I bring something back with me? Hit like if this story gave you chills, comment below if you've ever had an experience like this. And remember, some gates should never be opened. Subscribe, because I have more stories. And trust me, this one was just the beginning.